joined us. Thank you. Public comment. Anyone who wishes to speak to an item not on the regular agenda section of the agenda may address the council at this time. Any member of the public may request that an item on the consent agenda labeled as quasi-judicial be placed on the regular agenda for discussion and public comment or testimony. Public comment is intended to provide citizens with an opportunity to address council directly. Generally, council will not respond to public comment other than to seek clarification of the matter raised and defer such matter to the city manager for review and resolution. So at this time, we'll open public comment for anyone in chambers.
Good evening. I'm Natalie Walsh. I live in Ward 2. I hate to follow this excellent presentation. I'm not quite the public speaker that he is, but it's a related topic, and it has to do with the work of the district attorney's office. I was up at the Justice Center today, and I attended City Manager Steve Adams' criminal hearing, disposition hearing on the criminal charges against him. The criminal charges for harassment of a private citizen. Those of us in the public viewing section of the court learned that City Manager Steve Adams had come to an agreement with the district attorney to resolve the criminal charges against him. I have a copy of the diversion agreement if anyone hasn't seen it, but I'm hoping you all have. In the diversion agreement, which it sounds like our city manager was a beneficiary of one of the new programs that the district attorney has, the restorative justice program. And so in this diversion agreement, there were basically three requirements. One is that he remain a law-abiding citizen, which is a good requirement. The other is that he perform 50 hours of public service. And the third one is for him to attend a conflict management class, which I was really happy to see in that agreement. I want to believe that Mr. Adams is mortified and ashamed, as most of us would be, if we found ourselves in the position that he is. But given his position in the top job, city manager, I think it would be appropriate for him to ask to step aside from the most important decisions affecting the city right now, until he is able to make amends to the community that he serves. I hope the conflict management class helps him get there. In the alternative, you all can throw him a lifeline. You can seek outside input to determine what administrative options are available to relieve him of some of these duties while he completes his diversion obligations. I hope you also keep in mind that Mr. Adams is the boss of the city, of every city employee. Ultimately, it is he who hires, fires, and disciplines the city employees. It's going to be a tough spot for some of those employees right now. Perhaps you can direct Mr. Adams, awkwardly, to direct his HR department to make some resources available to those employees who find themselves in a difficult position now that the city manager is under this diversion agreement. Please don't sweep this under the rug. Keep Loveland lovely. Does anyone, exactly 3 minutes. Does anyone want a copy of the?
Thank you, Natalie.
Okay.
Good evening. Madam Mayor, councilors, my name is Michael Vogt, Larimer County. Tonight, I'm calling for the resignation of Steve Adams for the third time. Over 5 years ago, I stood at this lectern and called for the resignation of Steve Adams for a different reason. At that time, Steve and then Police Chief Bob Ticer were the only two men capable of solving a huge problem within the Loveland Police Department. Neither of those men did anything to solve the problem and instead kept a crooked, lying cop on the force for another 5 years. Chief Ticer at least had the decency to quit the department and leave town. But for some reason, Steve Adams is still here. In March of this year, I stood here again at this lectern and once again called for the resignation of Steve Adams. At that time, Steve had just assaulted investigative journalist Stacy Lynn, just days prior. That assault was captured on video from multiple angles. And for some reason, Steve Adams is still here. Today, Steve was given a diversion in court. We've heard a little bit about diversions earlier. Kind of sounds fun. This diversion does not excuse his behavior. In fact, it solidifies what the sheriff's office and the DA's office have already determined. And that's that Steve Adams has some serious anger issues. Once again, third time, Steve needs to save the city the time, the energy, and the humiliation of having to fire him. You can walk out the door tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Stacy Lynn, investigative journalist, Larimer County, Colorado. It's been 7 months since Steve Adams' criminal hit. Those 7 months have cost innocent people in this community more than can ever be replaced. 7 months of somebody's lives, all these lives, victims of the corruption in the city. You can't get it back. But now it's time for me to get back to work, and it's good to be here. The city manager's office and the city attorney's office are ground zero for the corrupt patterns and practices that happen inside the Loveland Police Department. This document, a motion that was written by a special prosecutor and filed with District Court Judge Julie Coonsfield in a Loveland homicide case, is now sealed. This document is sealed. You can't see it. When Julie Coonsfield sealed the case, she assisted the Loveland Police Department in covering up the true killer in this homicide case. This official court document lays out how illegal patterns and practices infect the entire police force. Those same dirty patterns and practices destroy friends and families of those falsely accused. There is a man in prison right now who didn't kill the love of his life. Reading directly from the motion by the special prosecutor in this sealed file, but first for clarity, the testimony of the detective in this file is in italics. The prosecutor's findings are highlighted in yellow. I don't expect you to see it from there. I'll answer any questions afterwards. This case has not been previously discussed by me in chambers, but this is a Loveland Police Department case. Remember, the special prosecutor is in highlighted yellow. Italics is the detective. The special prosecutor says, the investigator viewed the videotape and reviewed the transcripts of the detective's testimony provided during the hearing. The investigator identified each instance in which the testimony of the defendant did not represent the evidence of the events as captured on the videotape. The detective testifies. The prosecutor finds this is factually untrue. The detective testifies. The prosecutor finds this is factually untrue. This 22-page document outlines in 30 paragraphs a detective's testimony that was completely false and fabricated. And because of that completely false and fabricated testimony by a detective who was outed by a special prosecutor's investigation team, there's an innocent man in prison right now for killing the love of his life. When Julie Coonsfield sealed that motion, she helped the Loveland Police Department cover up that crime. This is a new case.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
City Attorney, so, we have, a lot of public speaking tonight, regarding, the case against the city manager. How would council go about having a discussion? What would that look like? I don't think we've ever crossed this bridge before.
Madam Mayor, what you have proposed sounds like a personnel issue that would be addressed in executive session.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Is there anyone else in chambers that wishes to give public comment?
Erin Black, Loveland, Colorado. Steve Adams, our City of Loveland City Manager, appeared in court today and agreed to a pretrial diversion agreement for a physical harassment case brought against him by the District Attorney's Office for hitting a female in the Larimer County Courthouse in March of this year. For anyone who does not understand what this means, diversion means admitting to violating the law. A diversion offer is a contract between the DA and the defendant that consists of a legally binding agreement that is enforceable by the courts. Diversion programs focus on rehabilitation, not punishment. That's one of the programs our DA was discussing. Essentially, a diversion program allows a so-called low-level defendant to completely avoid criminal charges. The goal is to prevent the defendant, in this case Steve, from committing additional criminal acts. This is done by providing necessary services to meet the defendant's needs based upon the criminal act and the mitigating factors that contributed to that behavior. Steve's diversion requirements are that he remain law-abiding, complete 50 hours of useful public service, complete a conflict management class, and pay the $75 class fee. These requirements must be met by February 8th, 2023 for the court's review hearing date. If Steve Adams complies with his end of the contract by successfully completing the diversion agreement, the case will be dismissed. If Adams doesn't complete the diversion requirements, then the criminal prosecution of this matter will be reinstated. So, another male Loveland employee that is engaged in aggressive and violent behavior against a female community member while acting in their professional capacity. This has got to stop. The criminal justice system cannot be the only source from which accountability and punishment abides in the city of Loveland. Steve Adams' conduct is not only unprofessional but criminal, and he is a liability risk to the city, and he is a community safety risk. The City Council must take swift action and make a motion to terminate Steve Adams effective immediately, to avoid further risk to our community's safety and to our city's reputation. The City of Loveland's Human Resource Office should also take immediate action and begin the termination process of Steve Adams to avoid future risk and liability to our city and its assets. Last note, the person that violates laws regarding an individual's safety should not be the person who gets to decide who is the next chief of public safety. That would just be outrageous. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Is there additional public comment?
I got a question
from inside?
for City Attorney.
Okay, go ahead, Councilor Foley.
City Attorney, does this, what was that called? This diversion, is that an admittance of guilt?
Go ahead, City Attorney.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Foley, what I would let you know is that Ms. Black has fundamentally misstated the agreement between the district attorney and City Manager Adams. She may be talking about what a general diversion agreement looks like. That is not this case. In this case, there is absolutely no admission. There is, this purported, as deemed by the sheriff's office, bump into Ms. Lynn, but there is no admission on any part of any sort of liability based on that agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there additional public comment from inside chambers? I'm not. Yes, come on up and give us your name and city of residence, please.
Good evening, Council. Mine's on a different topic. My name is Dwight Anderson. I reside in Ward 4 of Loveland. I'm also current City of Loveland Parks and Recreation Commissioner since January of this year. However, tonight I'm speaking as a citizen of Loveland, a property owner, a taxpayer, and a regular user, and an advocate for our city parks and recreation. On the consent agenda is a motion to adopt the city budget for 2023. I've reviewed that, the Parks and Recs portion of that budget, as all us commissioners did, and voted in support. The city's Parks and Rec staff has done an exemplary job in putting this budget together with fiscal responsibility and a conscious stewardship of funds. I appreciate the importance you, our city council, places on parks and recreation. It was a key factor in selecting Loveland as my home. My family and I use those facilities nearly every day. Our trail system, the Chilson Center, pickleball courts, golf, and much more. I became a commissioner as a civic duty to help pay back for those services. All of our Loveland recreation facilities and services are possible because you have recognized parks and recreation as an important part of our community. I encourage you to continue. With ever-increasing costs and pressures to cut budgets, and staff in a do more with less mentality, I caution that this only works to a point. At some point, you have to do less with less, either in services and or quality of those services. You need the right people in the right number with the right equipment to do the right job. I know the mayor has a new business agenda item addressing citywide staffing, but I would like to raise a flag for Parks and Rec specifically, because that's what I know. I have seen their work ethic, competence, and professionalism firsthand, both as individuals and as a team, and I'm impressed. We are fortunate to have such dedicated people, and we must retain them. Indoor and outdoor recreation is important to people within our community, and that demand is increasing. I look forward to the Parks and Recreation Department's master plan update to address how we can meet that demand in a fiscally responsible manner in the future. As a side note, our commission, as your advisory board, is preparing to brief you in the future on some of our insights as commissioners and recommendations that we've gained. I thank you for allowing me my time to share my comments and advocacy for Loveland Parks and Recreation. I hope you continue to prioritize these community services and facilities as a community necessity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. Is there additional public comment from inside chambers?
Good evening, David Goldberg, Ward 1. Just want to start by saying I appreciate the quest for justice within chambers tonight. Much appreciated. I mentioned last time that I thought it could be really valuable for council to start to hear some of the studies that have actually been done on cell towers and wireless radiation. I ran out of time, so I'd like to continue where I left off. This is a study that I mentioned last time from a woman, Diana Cordes, EDM MA, who lives on the island of Samos, Greece. This is an abstract of that study, or the research there. The area where we live had little wireless radiation until 2016, when 4G LTE networks were installed on Samos and many new cell towers were built, from which time insects and birds began to decline noticeably. A tipping point was reached in the summer of 2021 after the installation of a new 5G cell tower directly opposite the land. This cell tower is part of a new 5G network on Samos. Since July 2021, when the 5G network on Samos went live, insects on our land have declined between 80 and 90%, depending on species. All orders of insects are affected. The cause of these insect declines can only be RF radiation from the cell towers. No pesticides are used in this area, and nothing else can account for the sudden, severe drop in the number of insects in this place since July 2021. Small mammals, especially rodents, are also declining rapidly. 5G frequencies appear to be the main cause of the most recent insect declines, which are happening all over the island. The consequences of these declines will be far-reaching. This will affect wild plant diversity, agriculture, and beekeeping. Worse, they may lead to crop failures and mass bee colony collapse, respectively. Insect-eating birds will decline dramatically and may go extinct. Now, obviously, me reading one study or vignette of this experience on this island is no proof of the harms that I'm talking about, but I would like to suggest that there is a correlation which is backed by literally thousands of these type of accounts, many of them which I plan on reading just to begin the education process. Hopefully council has taken it upon themselves to do so, and for you to see that there may be severe harms of this type of radiation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Is there additional public comment from inside chambers? All right, we will move on to phone-in public comment, and I believe, Lindsay, you're handling our phone-in public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Marsh. Users, if you would like to speak during public comment, please use the raise your hand feature. Per council's policy, you must have your video on during public comment. As the moderator calls on the user's name, please accept the pop-up request on your screen to become a panelist. The meeting will automatically rejoin you as a panelist, and you may turn on your video, then begin your public comment. You must be ready to accept the pop-up window request from the moderator when called on. User with the name Olivia Lowe, please accept this request to become a panelist. Olivia Lowe, please turn on your video and begin your public comment.
Hi, my name is Olivia Lowe, Ward 2.
Olivia, we can't see you. We can hear you, but can't see you.
Oh dear. I got the video on. About now.
No. There you go. Now we can see you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Adams was court ordered today to attend anger management classes and to do community service for the crime of harassment/assault that he committed on the city's dime. And if you try to say that he wasn't acting in his official capacity as city manager at the time of the offense, then CIRSA cannot cover his legal fees. Furthermore, why in God's name would you allow Adams to be responsible for choosing our next chief of police? Someone who committed a crime is obviously not the person taxpayers want choosing the person who will fill the role of chief, whose job it is to serve and protect. And as a taxpayer of this community, I am tired of my money being squandered on legal fees for valid claims against the city. I'm not comfortable paying criminals to run this town. And you say you don't need a code of ethics. Adams needs to step down or to be let go. Any other city employee would have gotten walking papers on the spot. Adams is not above the law. None of you are. And I don't think the irony is lost on you that the DA gave his report this evening. He used words like protecting everyone, treating everyone equally, accountability, and to hold people accountable for their crimes. Not only is Adams not being held accountable if you choose to retain him, he couldn't even apologize. And for you to make light of it, to say, you know, he did not admit guilt, whatever the diversion thing is, not an admittance of guilt. When you bump into someone, you say, excuse me, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bump into you. None of those things happened. It is on video of what happened. Nobody bumps in or slams into somebody and doesn't apologize on the spot. That's ridiculous. So yes, he is culpable for this. And Foley, it's shameful that you would let it slide, or that you would even ask that question in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have a clarifying question?
Yeah, just a quick question. Olivia, is that an opinion referring to Mr. Adams as a criminal or a statement of fact?
you can, I think she's left. All right. Is there additional phone in public? Oh, Olivia, you are there. I thought you had left
Yeah.
this.
No, it just kept messing up. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I asked a clarifying question. You referred to a member of our city staff as a criminal. Is that your opinion or is that a statement of fact?
Well, I don't know, Overcash. I think if you go to court and the judge says that you are to complete community service as well as diversion training, I don't think that makes you innocent. And if you're not innocent, then yes, you're a criminal. You are guilty of a crime that you committed against another person. So yeah, he's a criminal, right? But, then again, you called me out and said that I needed to seek help, whatever that means. So, I don't know, Overcash.
Okay. All right.
You have just as many problems, maybe.
All right. Thank you, Olivia. Do we have additional phone in public comment?
Thank you, Mayor Marsh. User with the name Amanda, please accept the request to become a panelist. Amanda, please turn on your video and begin your public comment.
Amanda Waddell would be the last name. What's her? Waddell. How do you spell that? Amanda, your last name is W-A-D-D or one D?
Two D's.
Two D's. L-E?
E-L-L.
E-L-L, okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, Amanda Waddell, Ward 2. Again, I'm here just like most of the other commenters to call for Steve Adams to be fired. It's kind of amazing that he has been allowed to continue to perform his duties up until now. What I want to know is, will he face any consequences around his employment? He faced some consequences, today in court with the diversion program, which is a step. It's more than most have had to face in the past. But there is something that council can do. And if you all truly want to reinstate some trust in this city, you have to get rid of untrustworthy people. At least starting to have the conversation and making that conversation transparent to the public is a good start. This is not something that can be brushed under the rug. And just because Adams didn't walk into court and say, I'm guilty, doesn't mean that he didn't do anything wrong. And if you want to talk about responsibility, take some fiscal responsibility within the manager's office, within the attorney's office, within the council office. Take some fiscal responsibility by instead settling the numerous pending civil cases that are out there instead of paying for legal fees for people like Adams. And then just take some ethical and leadership responsibility by firing him. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Amanda. Lindsay, do we have additional phone in public comment?
Thank you, Mayor Marsh. User with the name Casey M, please accept this request to become a panelist. Casey M, please turn on your video and begin public comment.
I don't know if you all can see me because I can't tell from here.
We can see and hear you, Casey. Go ahead.
All right. Casey Mullins, Ward 2. And I'm calling in on comment on a couple things. The first one I'll go with here is item 3.2 on the consent agenda. As I recall, the last multiple readings of the budget, discussions of the budget as I watched, the very last one that was had, and I apologize for not knowing the exact date. Most of you said, well, okay, now this doesn't go through, if we have more questions or we have issues, this isn't our final vote. And yet, kind of seems like it was now that it's sitting on your consent agenda. So I don't know. I just pointing it out. And then I am going to go to, when the city's judge was in, and she talked about that a lot of kids get away with their first cigarette. They don't get cited for the first time they get caught smoking. And boy, there were quite a few members of this council and within the city that were like, oh my God, why are kids getting away with this? What kind of example does that set? So I ask you then, what kind of example does it set? Are you willing to have your example of city leadership continue to be someone that needs to go to a how to resolve things class? I call those bad boy or bad girl classes, but that is an opinion that I call them that. If he needs to go to conflict resolution classes per the court and agreed upon by himself, that seems like the perfect example of what do you want your leadership to look like? Are you going to just go, oh, well, it was a little bump, la-di-da, and just give not even a hand slap for that? That's how criminals start, as you have always said. It's how people get away with things. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Lindsay, do we have additional phone and public comment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We do not have any other users with their hands raised.
Thank you. Councilor McFall, did you have a clarifying question?
I did. I mean, Casey brought up a statement that we basically spoke about. Will we get another bite of the apple? And I think I was talking about that. And I just needed clarification on this because I believe we were talking specifically about the Humane Society, not the full budget in itself. And I'm just trying to see if somebody can clarify if I'm correct or not on that statement.
Do you mean, was that what Casey was referring to?
Yeah, well, she was referring to the whole budget, and I'm just trying to get clarification that I don't believe it was the whole budget we spoke about on that. I believe it was the Humane Society.
So, yeah, so Casey, are you still with us? When you were talking about the budget tonight being on the consent agenda, was it in regards to the Humane Shelter? I don't know if she's still with us. Casey,
I'm sorry, I had to rejoin.
Hi, Casey. When you were asking about the budget being on consent agenda, were you asking about the ability to talk about the Humane Shelter? Is that the item, or was it the entire budget?
I thought, and absolutely could be wrong, but I thought there were other items that counselors wanted to look at. Yes, the Humane Society, and that's on its own and not what I'm discussing right now. But I'm sorry, I kind of thought Councilor McFall wanted clarification from y'all if it was only Humane Society questions.
That's what I was looking for, Casey. That is exactly what I was looking for. Because I thought I remembered it that way. So I was looking, hopefully, for the city manager or somebody to clarify. No, the only item we had any aspect of wanting to look at again was the Humane Society. I thought. And I just wanted clarification so we're all on the same page.
City manager.
Madam Mayor and City Council, thank you for the question. Ms. Mullins, I appreciate the question. What the normal practice has been is when the council votes unanimously for an item on its first reading, it's placed on the consent agenda. You are correct. There was a lot of discussion on the Larimer Humane Society item, and it was moved to the regular agenda. It's item 7.1.
And I will add that another item that got a lot of discussion was the Pulliam Building, and that will come back before council, I believe, on December 13th. So that's, all right. Thank you, and we're closing public comment.